So, well, at least they didn't lose by 30. I mean, this game was frustrating and it was all over the place. I have a lot to say. I'm gonna try to say it where I'm not saying like just going off topic. So I'm just gonna go by each individual player. The defense played a lot better. Happy about that. They just couldn't pull in close. Boston was able to make the timely shots. When they pulled in within 6, the lead down, Boston will pull away. When they got it within 6 in the waning minutes of the fourth quarter, Horford hit a big 3 and put up the 9. And it's just like when they got those timely buckets, Boston was able to respond with a timely bucket in kind. Reaction, I'm pretty much just going to go through players. And I'm going to start with James Harden. James Harden stunk up the place. Game 2 and 3, he's pretty much just done bad. He hasn't been able to respond with Jaylen Brown on him. That was a smart move by Boston's coach to put Jaylen Brown on Harden because he hasn't been able to respond, the length, the strength, and they're picking him up and making him feel very uncomfortable. And it's having a big time effect. There are times when he goes through the lane and he thinks he has an easy layup, and then boom, somebody comes out of nowhere and block the shot. It actually happened when they were at the switch and he was driving to the lane. He thought he had a nice and easy layup, and before you know it, Jaylen Brown came and blocked the shot. They pretty much crowded him. When he tried to do a mid-range, somebody was always there jumping. They stayed up in him, they crowded him, and to the point that you can see that he was a little shaken. There were times that he would drive where he had open shots that he passed the ball. I don't know what to say. I mean, I was on Twitter and people were saying it was like shades of Ben Simmons. He was shooting. Regardless of how much he stunk up the place, he was shooting. Ben would just stop shooting. With that said, though, in the fourth quarter, he made the 3. He's just struggling. I don't know how he's going to be able to recover by the way he played, because he can only play one way. He needs the ball in his hands, and they do the pick and roll at the key, and he drives or he passes. And this, just to digress, this is the beauty of Steph Curry. People like to sit there and talk bad, like really sit there and say Steph Curry is like not say a one-trick pony, but people don't want to give him the credit that he deserves. Steph can play on the ball, off the ball, and I think in situations this will help if he was able to play off the ball, but he can't. Or Joe just post up like when he posted up and James walked into a 3. Tyrese struggled during this game too. And I think also part of Tyrese's struggle is because there are too many times when the Sixers have a break and they pull the ball back to give it to Harden. My biggest issue with that, it makes it difficult for Tyrese. Boston already has length. They've blocked his shot a number of times, and there are times when Tyrese have to make a layup. He's stretching in a way where the shot is difficult, especially against length. And the refs aren't going to give him that call because of the way he's contorting himself. So he's put in a situation where he's not scoring the way that he was scoring too. And I just don't know. I really just don't know, because Boston's playing such good defense. They're crowding Joe. They're swarming around. They're running people off the 3, and they're making the Sixers work. With that said, the Sixers offense makes it easy because they're setting up every time. They're not trying to get easy shots. Where Boston is getting a number of easy shots through ball movement, or if they're able to sit there and get a fast break point, get a fast break shot. And I just don't know how they're going to be able to rebound from this, because right now this is just a structured offense. With the pick and roll, just digressing back to Harden, with the pick and roll, he's not even passing. Passing to Joe is not even an option. And so it's like you did that all year, and now it's not even being able to be done in the playoffs. So then it's like, well, what did you do that for? But now going back to Maxey, the bigger bodies are giving him problems. His 3 is not working, and when they're able to get pace and he's able to run up the court and get some easy shots, then that's how his whole game blossoms. He did okay in the third quarter, it's just still, into percentage wise, he struggled. The defense, Tobias was having a good game. He didn't shoot enough. I think there's many reasons why he didn't shoot enough. He was putting people on the block, scoring that. He scored one, and then Williams wound up blocking it. But I think Williams, after he hit his elbow, I didn't see him come back. So I'm not even sure if he's injured and he's coming back. With that said, though, Tobias, I think he ended with 7 points. I don't even know what to say with this, because I have to give credit to Boston's defense. Boston's defense is playing well, and Boston's defense is pretty much making the Sixers work for everything every score that they get. Where on the other side, Boston is able to generate some easy points. It may not be consistent, but they're still able to generate some points, to the point that they were shooting 40 at 44, somewhere around there, 40 at 44. The Sixers, on the other hand, was shooting like 39 from the field and 44 from the three. 3-pointers and free throws was really what kept them in the game offensively, because they weren't, in terms of twos, just wasn't getting any shots, because the Boston defense played well. Boston defense played a lot of zone. They zoned up because of Joel Embiid, and they're putting around as many bodies as possible to make it difficult for him and crowd him and everything. But just jumping back to the defense, it played well. It just couldn't get timely shots. And again, there's times where Boston was able to get offensive rebounds, and off those offensive rebounds, they was able to hit a three. I have Doc. There was a lineup in the first half that I think was Daniels, Maxey, Melton, Harden, Embiid, and then they put in Paul Reed. When they were down, he put that lineup in. That lineup was able to cause some issues with Boston, because even when Boston switched, everybody was able to switch, and they couldn't hunt for a mismatch. And they were quick, and with Daniels, and they were long, and they were able to run Boston off the three. So Boston really had to work for it in the half court, and then they were able to keep up with them in transition. He never went back to that. And he kept putting Niang in. Yes, Niang had double digits, but the fact that Boston started looking for Niang, and then when James in the game, they started looking for James in terms of hunting for mismatches. I just don't know in terms of Doc sometimes. Like, you have to stir something up, because the Sixers offense hasn't recovered. Since they put Williams in the game, they haven't recovered because of the energy that he's given to the team off the bench and stuff like that. And Doc has been staying with the same thing. Well, he did something different, and it worked, and he never went back to it. You need speed and you need length at some times to be able to sit there and balance that out and run them off the three to get around, because Boston's ball movement is very good. And since Joe is back, they're doing a lot of drive and kick. They'll drive in, they'll kick their ball out, and they're making them. Both teams ended with 16 threes. Sixers has a higher percentage. Boston shot like 44. Sixers, I think, shot like 30 something. They still ended with 16 threes. It's just that the Sixers have to work for their threes, where Boston is getting a lot of open threes because of drive and kick. So when it comes to Doc, I don't know what he's going to do. I'm very annoyed and I'm frustrated, because I'm like, look, I'm not a religious person, but I'm about to find religion off of this, because this is just crazy. You sit there and you can give all the speeches you want. At some point, you have to do something to sit and shake some things up. Now, you bench PJ Tucker and put in Daniels and had that quicker lineup, and then PJ start hitting a three. That's fine, but you still needed that speed out there. Sunday is the next game. I really don't know. I really don't know how this is going to go. Doc is still he really sat and stuck with the same thing in the second half. With that said, though, James Harden struggling like he did in the second quarter into halftime, he had to ride Joe because James was just stinking up the place. James Harden and Maxey struggling really made it difficult. Joe Embiid had his MVP night, and his MVP night was pretty much hijacked by the Boston Celtics. And now Boston they have home field advantage again. I don't know what to. I really don't know what to say, but James Harden is stinking up the place, and Doc is going to have to find a way to counteract James Harden being played by Brown. And if he don't, the Sixers are going home. Or they're going to have to speed up the game in some way. Because I always look at the offense should be, you should try to get the break first. If you can't get the break first, then you pull it back and let Joe cook. Because Joe is going to get his regardless. And speaking of Joe, there are times when they're going to have to speed up the game in some way. Because I always look at the offense should be, you should try to get the break first. If you can't get the break first, then you pull it back and let Joe cook. Because Joe is going to get his regardless. And speaking of Joe, there are times when Joe is facing up and the team is in zone. And you're trying to go through three people. Sometimes you just got to give up the rock and just let the ball swing around and then let them find you. He did it one time when he swung the ball around, then he moved around and they found an open spot and he shot a midi. That's something he doesn't do enough. There's times when he even has to work too much. They make the offense difficult where they have to work all the time. And you see the Celtics are getting easier and open shots from the driving kick or people cutting to the lane. What you think? I don't know. I probably have to do a dance or something to try to get some good juju here because this thing is ridiculous. But that's really all I got to say. If you like what you're hearing, I'm all discombobulated. Push that button, subscribe, give me a like. I'm out. I got nothing left.